Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Which verse is going up? Today, we're speaking from 10th canto, chapter 15, verses 14 to 17. On the monitor will be verse 14. Kecit krida parishrantam pāda-saṁvāhanam swayam vishramayat yaryam pāda-saṁvāhanadibihi. Kecit, sometimes. Krida, by playing. Parishrantam, fatigued. Gopa, of a cowherd boy. Utsanga, the lap. Uparanam, using as his pillow. Swayam, personally. Vishramayati, relieves him from his fatigue. Aryam, his elder brother. Pāda-saṁvāhanadibihi, by massaging his feet and offering other services. Translation. When his elder brother, fatigued from playing, would lie down with his head upon the lap of a cowherd boy, Lord Krishna would help him relax by personally massaging his feet and offering other services. So let's repeat that. When his elder brother, fatigued from playing, would lie down with his head upon the lap of a cowherd boy, Lord Krishna would help him relax by personally massaging his feet and offering other services. This is the purport. The word pāda-saṁvāhanam indicates that Lord Krishna would massage Balaram's feet, fan him, and bring him river water to drink. There are several verses with no purport. So as is the custom, we're going to go ahead to the next verse that has a purport. There's several verses. I'll just repeat those I'll just say those verses. I'll give the translations. Verse 15, it's sometimes as the cowherd boys danced, sang, moved about and playfully fought with each other, Krishna and Balaram, standing nearby hand in hand, would glorify their friends' activities and laugh. And verse 16 is, sometimes Lord Krishna grew tired from fighting and lay down at the base of a tree, resting upon a bed made of soft twigs and bough, and using the lap of a cowherd friend as his pillow. And text 17 is, some of the cowherd boys, who were all great souls, would then massage his lotus feet, and others, qualified by being free of all sin, would expertly fan the Supreme Lord. The purport to that one is, The word samavījayan indicates that the cowherd boys fanned the Lord very carefully and expertly, creating gentle and cooling breezes. Namo Vishnuvaraya Krishna Vastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharne Nirvisesa Sunyavari Paskacha Disatarne Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Panchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhayevachi Patit Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebho Namo Namaha Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila, chapter 13, verse 18, is described that there are 4 stages. We can consider that there's 4 stages in Krishna's activities. The first stage is the Balya stage, until Krishna is up to 6 years old. There's the Puganda stage, which is between 6 years and 10 years. There's the Kishore stage, which is 10 to 16. And then there's the Yovanam stage, which is when he's over 16. Krishna never gets old, but he gets a little older than 16. Generally, there are groups of activities within these different stages which delight groups of devotees who are particularly attracted to Krishna in these stages. So in the first stage, it's mostly older people, Krishna's parents, Krishna's aunts and uncles, the other elderly gopas and gopis in the village. And in the next stage, the Puganda stage, it's generally Krishna's friends. He's having lots of boisterous fun with his friends. The gopis aren't involved in this stage. They come a little later. I'll mention that in a bit. But they are mostly in the Kishore stage, when he's an older boy. And finally, the Yovanam stage is when Krishna goes out of Vrindavan. He has pastimes in other places, in Dwarka, in Kurukshetra, and so on. So this particular chapter that we're dealing with now, chapter 15, is specifically dealing with the Pugandam stage. It's not actually until the end of this chapter that the gopis, the young gopi girls, are mentioned. And it's said that remaining hidden, they spied upon Krishna and admired him in a romantic sense. But Krishna, up until this point, he's not aware of this, and he's just having fun with his friends. Vishwanath Chakravarti, in his commentary, on this chapter, he says that he quotes from the Padma Puran in the Kartik Mahatmya, and he says that at the Gopastami festival, where all the cows and all the calves are worshipped, at this festival, Krishna was giving charge of the cows. So up until this point, he had just been a small boy, and he was looking after the calves. And the calves, they're young, they don't go far, they don't like to wander, they're a bit timid. So it's an easier job to look after the calves than it is to look after the cows. The cows are big cows, they go far, they eat a lot more, they go in search of pastures, they go to new places, they go wandering. So the boys are really out and about in the forests of Vrindavan when he was. So when they're looking after the cows. It's a working village. One time Srila Prabhupada, he was talking about Krishna and Balaram, and he said, Balaram carries a plow. He said, this is not ornamental, it's for plowing. He's a farmer, they plow the fields, they grow vegetables, Krishna milks the cow, they look at, this is what the village do. And throughout Krishna books, in the Vrindavan village, there's so many activities which are connected with the daily lives of these farming cowherd people. Making the milk, making the yogurt, the monkeys coming like today, trying to steal something. The rains, they're concerned about the rains, the crops, the growth, the water. Kaliya's poisoning the water, they need the water for the crops. So it's very much about the village life in India. And if one wanders a little from the Vrindavan town, which is becoming quite built up and quite cosmopolitan, if one goes to the other side of the river, if one, you can see all these activities today. So Krishna, he has given the charge of the cows. There's so many cows, he only has a group of cows, but this is at this stage. So when he goes with his cowherd boys, they're just off on their own in the forests, on Govardhan Hill and so many places, and they amuse themselves by having so much fun. So this 15th chapter highlights the interaction and the mood and the lila of this Poganda age, which is in Sakiras. So it's just his boyfriend, they're just boys having fun. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 19, verses 183 and 184, Srila Prabhupada describes that Sakya Ras essentially is having equality with Krishna. No one is thinking Krishna's any better than they are. They're thinking they're equal with Krishna. He's one of the boys. They like Krishna. They're particularly attracted to Krishna. But this isn't any kind of awe or veneration. He's simply their best mate. They love Krishna. He's their best mate. But he is their friend. And to have this vision, they must be complete. It mentions in the verse they were sinless. These sinless people were fanning nicely. So one must be above material contamination to enter into this appreciation of Krishna as a friend, this sakiras, this loving reciprocation and friendship. And it's categorized by joking, by having fun, by playing together. They wrestle, they do different things, they play tricks on each other, they steal each other's food. It's just boisterous boys having a lot of fun. And as I said, the gopis, they are not mentioned at all until the end of this chapter. And it's just that they make their presence. He doesn't have an interaction with them at this time. The village of Vrindavan and all of the interactions and how everybody interacts, it is very much like an extended Indian family. And we Westerners, I feel that we lose some of the understanding and some of the social dynamic because we don't subscribe to this type of living. Generally, as soon as one can be financially independent, one leaves one's Western family. We involve in what is called a nuclear family. The mother, the father, 2 children, and they're off on their own and they're living independently. They do meet the larger family at times. In America, it's Thanksgiving. In the European countries at Christmas time, they all meet together, they have a family meal, but essentially they're living very separately. Whereas in India, we can see today, and certainly in Krishna's time, it was a whole community and they were all interacting within this community. A few months ago, I left Vrindavan to go to England, where my youngest son was getting married. We are Celts, of course. We're Scottish, very pale, white people. But somehow or other, he married a girl from the Gujarati family, a Patel. And her parents are very nice temple devotees. They do service for ever since I knew her since she was a little girl. And somehow or other, they decided to marry. And at the marriage ceremony at Bhakti-Vedanta Manor, they very proudly told him that now he was part of the Patel clan. He was a Patel then. And when I went to England, it was during lockdown, and the only way that I could get into the country was going into voluntary lockdown, quarantine, which I had to pay for. It was expensive, I had to pay for it. But when I was there, I was getting so many calls on my phone from this gaggle of elderly ladies in the Patel clan. Was I okay? Would I like my chapatis delivered? How do I like my, and they wanted to deliver meals as many times a day. And the quarantine was about 30 miles away. And I said, yeah, but this is very inconvenient, and it's no, and they were insisting, as ladies do, that they insist they're going to feed you. And I had to explain that I've been having dal and chapatis in Vrindavan for years, and I was really into having an avocado sandwich, and the local supermarket would deliver things to me. But the point that I'm making it, so I declined their kind offer, but the point I'm making is there was very much of a community atmosphere which I feel is very much missing in the Western countries. And so, Srila Prabhupada, he went to the United States, he had Western disciples, all of his eldest and senior disciples are Western people, and Srila Prabhupada put to them the task of establishing Varnashram. But I feel personally, because we don't have an insight into the extended family, we don't really have a clue of how to go about establishing Varnashram. Because the Western ethos is for a person to be fiercely independent and to amass as much as he can, often in the process exploiting others. So most people in the Varnashram are Sudra Varna. They're just workers, they just work hard, they do what they're told. But today there's no understanding that a person would be taken care of if he subscribed to this. So in all of the papers I have seen by all of the devotees, they spell out, chart out exactly how the Varnashram's going to work. But the difficulty is, I haven't seen that people are volunteering to do the menial work because they just don't feel that they'll be taken care of. As an example of this, in 10 years ago now, it's more than 10 years, 2008, when we had the big crash, the big stock market crash, and it was the Black Friday, they call it, and the value of stocks just plummeted. They just fell drastically. So on the Monday morning, as to be expected, when the stock exchange workers, when they turned up for work at the stock exchange in England, we have the City of London. This is where it's a small area, actually, the City of London, the ancient city within the walls. It's like Wall Street, the equivalent of Wall Street in New York. When the people showed up for work, the management were out on the sidewalk with desks and so on, computers, and people were told that there's no work for them. So in London, there's 4 big stock exchange companies. There's 2 of them are American, 1 of them English, and 1 of them is Swiss. And the English stock exchange enterprise and the 2 American stock exchange enterprises, they sacked 50% of their workers. They said, there's no more work for you. Don't come in the building. If you have any personal effects, the security will get them. So there was a picture of the children. There was a model of his boat. There was a car magazine or whatever amused him. These were brought to him in a cardboard box and said, we'll send any money we owe you onto you. The Swiss company, they sacked 100% of their workers, sacked everybody, except for a few key managers. And then they got the 40% I think they got that they needed. They employed those from the other people who had been sacked at a very reduced rate. So the people who had worked for that company, made them work millions, worked so hard, they were just sacked when there was an economic viability to do so. So because the Western countries are so much onto an economic model, and this is what is measured, not like in Vrindavan we're talking about the fertility of the earth or the bounty of the trees. This chapter goes on to talk about the tal trees and the Denakasura demon who's guarding them and preventing access, or the cleanliness of the water, the cleanliness of the air, the quality, the lack of erosion. None of this is given any value in the economic system, which was purely about money. So as long as we have these independent people who are just trying their hardest to amass for themselves or their very close circle, it will be difficult to establish Varnashram. And so I think this is something which seriously has to be looked at. The nearest model for Varnashram that I can think of is in the large European estates, the aristocratic estates, in which the workers all had a job for life. They had housing, they had medical, they had, they were taken care of. Even after they were the point that they could no longer work, they were taken care of, they had a cottage to live in, and so on and so on. So these verses, which we read today, are typical of the chapter, and they're characterized by the playfulness. They're massaging each other, they're fanning each other, they do all different types of activities, they're laughing, the trees and so on are bowing in homage to Krishna. And Krishna is saying, no, it's not me, it's you, mate. He's saying this brother, it's not for me. Look, all the, and they're just having fun and just generally having fun. In a letter to Jayapataka Maharaj in 1969, Srila Prabhupada, he answered a question from Jayapataka Maharaj by saying, generally, those attached to Lord Chaitanya and the Goswamis and their teachings, generally these people are expected to develop a conjugal ras, conjugal bhava with Krishna. This is to be expected. So in the main, in our sampradaya, there is the worship of Radha and Krishna and the aspiration to involve in some small way to assist the assistance of those involved in the pastimes in Radha and Krishna. But not all of the sampradaya is involved in this rasa. And sakaras that we're talking about with Krishna and his cowherd boys, this is evident. Those who advocate Madhurya Ras, and there are contemporary gurus who do so, then they don't at all emphasize sakaras. But in our sampradaya, in the history of our sampradaya, there is definitely evidence of sakiras. In the Brihat Bhagavatamrita of Sanatana Goswami, he also wrote, as you know, Hari Bhakti Vilas. One of the main protagonists is Gopakumar, and there's The second half is the whole adventures of Gopakumar, who goes through so many different places and sees so many different levels of worship of Vishnu and Narayan and Krishna and so on. But finally he comes to rest in the place where he's most comfortable, in Sakaras. So Sanatana Goswami, he deliberately portrayed the main character as in Sakaras. In Bhaktivinoda's Jayavadharma, Brajnath expresses to his guru on being asked that his aspiration is to herd the cows in Braj along with Krishna. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur, this is his, he has many books, and in this opus magnum, in his greatest philosophical work, he gives this character Brajnath the identity in Sakaras. Baladev Vidyabhusana, who was born in Ramuna in 1720, so this is much more recent, and we have much more of his literature available today because it was being recent. He was born in Ramuna in Orissa, and as you know, this is a famous with Kirchor Gopinath and the pastime with Madhavendra Puri. So Baladev Vidyabhusana, famously he wrote Govinda Bhasya, and he has written 23 other works, of which 21 we know, the others 2 appear to be lost, but he's listed with 23, and 21 of them are with us today. And his writings indicate that he is situated in Sakaras. Srila Prabhupada, he was very much in admiration of Baladev Vidyabhusana, and in Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad-Gita, that he went to so much trouble to print in the Western countries, because at the time in the European and the English languages, there were about 23 commentaries on Bhagavad-Gita, Advaita commentaries. There wasn't a Vaishnava commentary in English, in a European language in the Western world. There was no commentary. So Prabhupada took great pains to print the Bhagavad-Gita, and the first one was a lavender color, abridged version, very small. A lot of it had been chopped out, about 2/3 I think had been chopped out, and it was published by a prestigious company, Collier Macmillan. But even in that Bhagavad-Gita, Srila Prabhupada insisted that this dedication be put in the, and it's in all of the volumes, all that you look in your Bhagavad-Gita, you'll see this. In the very first page, Prabhupada dedicates, he says, to Srila Baladev Vidyabhusana, who presented so nicely the Govinda Pasya commentary on Vedanta philosophy, on the Vedanta. So Srila Prabhupada, he was very appreciative of Baladev Vidyabhusana. So generally, the Gaudiya Acharyas, they don't declare what their rasa is. Their rasa, their intimate relationship with Krishna, is a private and a personal matter, and not just for public consumption. Because if a relationship with Krishna is pre-established, and this boils down to if bhakti is inherent within the swarup of the jiva, if bhakti, if prem is his swabhava, if this is so, then we needn't make any extended effort to establish ourselves. So the program of Srila Prabhupada was that we just become generally purified, And then what is our inclination internally would become more and more manifest. So the purification that Srila Prabhupada instructed in Kali Yuga was the chanting of the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. In particular, by Nagar Kirtan, and also Srila Prabhupada explained that book distribution, this was Sankirtan. So by actual chanting with kartals, with mridangas, and by profuse book distribution, this was Srila Prabhupada's instruction on how we can become purified to the extent that an understanding of the prem within our swarup and how this manifests, this would become apparent. So in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila, chapter 7, verse 141, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, love of God is dormant in everyone. And if given a chance to hear about the Lord, certainly love develops. Prabhupada says, our Krishna conscious movement acts on this principle. So the principle, as Vaisesika Prabhu so nicely puts in a nutshell, become Krishna conscious and give others Krishna conscious. Make others Krishna conscious. And by this program of book distribution, of Harinam, of prasad distribution, people will become attracted, as we see all over the world. Each and every one of us here has been attracted by Srila Prabhupada's program of chanting, dancing, hearing Harikatha, and taking prasad. So all of us, if we are here because we want to become engaged, situated in our original position, this is why we are here. And it will accelerate this process if we give this to others. So this is why every morning, Janardhan Maharaj, he reads out how many books were distributed, how many Brijbasis, how many people took to the chanting of the holy names. We have 24-hour kirtan, we have Nagar Kirtan in different places, and we're very, very pleased and very, very happy that people are giving donations to help us with these programs. So every morning the list of donors is read out. This person gave this, all for this purpose of us becoming Krishna conscious, and more importantly, to spread Krishna conscious to others. So if bhakti is inherent, as Srila Prabhupada said, love of God is dormant in everyone, then we simply have to undertake these processes. However, and some Vaishnav gurus are of the opinion that prem must be introduced, prem must be given to the person. He must give them, he must reveal to them their siddhadeya, and he must infuse them in this so that they can participate in these leelas. If this is the case, then it's very, very dangerous, because if a person is told, oh, you're actually a gopi, then the tendency is to prematurely to try to act in this manner, but one still has material contamination. He has material thoughts and activities, and this results in sahaja activity. So the bane of the Gaudiya Sampradaya has been this sahaja activity. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he took great pains to give a very, very pure version that would be appreciated by the world's authorities. When I was a brahmachari in the early 70s, here in India, I was collecting for the Hyderabad temple. The Hyderabad temple was the very first custom temple to be built by ISKCON in India, even before Vrindavan. There was nothing here, no bricks, nothing. It was just a piece of land while the Hyderabad temple was being built. And traveling in Andhra Pradesh and Karnataka to different towns, different people, different businesses, I would be trying to introduce some nice gentleman to have him participate in our life membership program. He, of course, would be very surprised to see a very young Western person, a European, taking to Vaishnav Prince and to try to enthusiastically and trying to involve him, that he would participate with us. So eventually in the conversation they would say, "And where is your guru from?" And I'd say, "Oh, he's from Calcutta." At that point it happened 3 times. I thought, what did I say? What? He would just totally ignore me. He would go about his business, do his phone call, like I wasn't there. And I thought, oh, he's there. I'd wait for some time. I'd wait for 20 minutes, and I would just be ignored. I thought, what's going on? And then after some time, I spoke to a very nice pundit from the Madhva Sampradaya, who very much liked Srila Prabhupada in our program. And he explained that he said there's most of the branches of the Gaudiya Sampradaya are just out and out Sahajya. So as soon as you mention Bengal, you're not respectable. And he doesn't want anything, just doesn't want anything more. They didn't actually physically throw me out the office, but I was just ignored. So I said, okay. So in future they said, oh, where is your guru from? I said, oh, our guru lived for a long time in Vrindavan. They said, oh, that is so wonderful. How can I participate? How can I become a member? So Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he took great pains to have us worship Krishna in a very respectable manner. And what militates against this is this idea that someone can give another person gopi prem, and then they can just act as a gopi in this, but still occupying a mundane material platform. The Brihat Bhagavatamrita it means the essence of the nectar of the Bhagavatam. Srila Prabhupada says in Adi Lila, chapter 5, verse 203, he said, anyone who wants to learn about devotees and devotional service should read Brihat Bhagavatamrita. Bhagavatamrita, it's called an anthology. This is an analysis of the teachings of Mahaprabhu in ontological classification of close devotees and closer devotees, their fundamental nature and the existence. And in this, the main protagonist is Gop Kumar. And Gop Kumar is described as being, portrayed as being in Sakya Ras. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur, although has a manjari pastime in the spiritual world, he's portraying Sakya Ras. In Jayapataka, Bhaktivinoda, which I mentioned was his opus magnum, his greatest work, Bhaktivinoda Thakur was very prolific, and we have 74 different works of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And his character in Jayapataka, Brajnath, his main character expresses to his guru an invitation, what is your attraction? He said, I'm attracted. As I said, he's attracted to being a cowherd boy in the forests of Vrindavan with Krishna. Srila Prabhupada here in Vrindavan, when we first got the land, we were living in the Radha Damodar temple, in rooms directly above Srila Prabhupada's rooms in Vrindavan. We were living there, and every day we would have a morning program at the temple there, at the Mangalarti, which was a little later, about 6 or so. Then we would come on Harinam Sankirtan. We would come along this Chatikara road. It was a dusty road in those days, but we would have Harinam all the way here to the land. It was empty. There was some cactuses on it. There was just, it was abandoned land. And then we would go back down the Parikram path, back to the Radha Damodar temple. When Srila Prabhupada started to build, the Hyderabad temple was just nearing completion, and Prabhupada started building here and planning for the temple here. What many people don't know is that there were 3 different sets of plans which Sorabi grew up for the temple. And the first set of plans under Srila Prabhupada's instructions was very much like the Radha Damodar temple. There was an open courtyard, there was the deities up on a plinth, and surrounding there was, I think there was 8 rooms. And Prabhupada described that one of the rooms was the kitchen, one of the rooms was for the boga, one of the rooms was for the office, one of the rooms was for storage, one of the rooms was a life membership room, and so on. So as Sorabi was sketching out and drawing, and he said to Srila Prabhupada, he said, Srila Prabhupada, where will the devotees sleep? And Srila Prabhupada said, they will sleep in the courtyard. And before Mangal Arti, they will roll up their bedrolls and put them on the roof of the 1-story building. That was the original plans. Guru Kripa Maharaj, he started to bring in money, and Srila Prabhupada then instructed to put a 2nd floor, 2nd story around the courtyard. And then there was a room for the devotees to sleep. And then it wasn't until Guru Kripa, showing his great love for Prabhupada and his great bhakti and his great endeavor and great determination, there was more money coming in. And then Srila Prabhupada sat down and he designed the guest house and so on and so on and so on. So I'm giving this illustration to say that I'm of the opinion that Srila Prabhupada developed things as he went along according to the opportunity. Now there are those who say that Bhaktivinoda Thakur had a vision from across the Jalangi and so on, and everything like the Battle of Kurukshetra was already won, and people are simply almost puppets participating and so on. I understand that point of view, but I'm of the point of view that Srila Prabhupada, he adjusted as things developed. So, when Srila Prabhupada was on the Jaladuta, he had asked Srimati Morarji, who was the owner, she inherited the Scindia shipping company. There was 43 different ships. Some of them were just glorified boats. None of them were really ocean-going or transatlantic, those types, but there was a few, and one was plying its trade to New York. So Srila Prabhupada, again and again, he asked her to please give me passage, I must go and preach and so on. And she was refusing him. She was saying, Swamiji, you really don't want to go to New York. She said, I've been there. It's not a place for a sadhu. She said, you should just stay in Vrindavan, do your bhajan. She said, I'll build you a little temple. She said, I'll build you a place. Just stay there. But Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, he insisted, and he eventually got passage on the Jaladuta to New York. And as soon as he was given passage, it's in the archives, and people who went to research for the biography, she gave her files, and it was there. There was a message from all those years before to her chief agent in New York. She sent telegram. She said, one sadhu is coming. He's coming to look around New York. Make sure there's a berth for him on the next return ship, which was 10 days later. So she was giving him 10 days. Look around and say, what am I doing here? Let me go back to Vrindavan. And Srila Prabhupada, in that first year, he himself says that he went a number of times to the shipping office to check, when is the next ship going back? When, maybe I'll just stay a few more weeks, a few more. And eventually, the society of ISKCON was developed and founded. But on that ship, going to New York, on the ocean, Srila Prabhupada, there was storms at sea. Prabhupada was seasick. Prabhupada had never been on a ship. He had crossed the Ganges to Navadvip on those boats, but never been in an ocean-going vehicle, never having left the country, never been to a foreign, what to speak of America, what to speak of New York. So I feel that Srila Prabhupada was full of intrepidation and just wondering what he can achieve. And in those writings that's now the Jaladuta diary, he said, my Lord, if you desire, let me dance, let me dance. So on this, while crossing, wondering what was going to happen, not sure, it was completely up to the Lord. He was simply trying to be an instrument at a very advanced age. Srila Prabhupada, he wrote a poem in Bengali. He said, Tomare Melani Bai, Abrase Sukapai, Gocharani Churi Dinbor, Katibani Chuta Chutiban, Kailut Puti, Sedin Kabi Habi More. This is in Bengali, and the English translation of this is, oh dear friend, in your company I will express great joy again and again. In the early morning I will wander about the cowherd pastures and fields, running and frolicking in the many forests of Braj. Prabhupada uses the word chuti, and this is a particular word, and it translates into English as frolicking. And frolicking is a word which is very well known in English, but it's not used very much. Prabhupada says he will frolic in the many forests of Braj. Frolic means to amuse oneself, to make merry, to run around happily, to play energetically and uninhibitedly. And the use of the word frolic is mostly used to define young animals. And it's used very much in describing the playfulness of young baby sheep. And if you Google pictures of, you'll see hundreds of pictures and videos of young lambs playing around. And it's young horses also, young foals. In Bhaktivedanta Manor in London, all of the cows are kept indoors in barns in the winter because it's so cold. And then there's a day which is determined that they open the doors, and the cows, they see that they can get out, and they run and they're jumping and skipping, and they're just, you think they're going to fall and break their leg. It's a big animal and he's jumping and skipping. And we see frolicking also amongst the monkeys. Most of the damage to our laundry hanging on the lines is the young baby monkeys. They're just looking to have fun. The older monkeys, they're searching for food. They're just focused on food. But the young monkey, he just tags along and he wants to have fun. He's playing, he swings on the laundry, he climbs up the lady's sari, but they tear the sari, and then something he likes, he takes it with him, and he takes a shoe, and they're just having fun. So this is frolicking. So Srila Prabhupada said that he is longing to, oh dear friend, in your company I will express great joy again and again. In the early morning I will wander about the cowherd pastures and fields, running and frolicking in the many forests of Braj. I will roll on the ground in spiritual ecstasy. Oh, when will that day be mine? So Srila Prabhupada, he is very much, it seems, expressing at least appreciation for the sakiras, relationship with Krishna. We're out of time now. I want to say one final thing. Bhaktivinoda Thakur typifies in Sri Chaitanya Shikshastrika, he typifies the mood of Dhenikasura. He said Dhenikasura represents ignorance of knowledge of the self through gross materialistic intelligence. Through applying our intelligence to gross material things, we lose an understanding of what is our real nature, what is our self. It says, he says Dhenikasura represents the bad mentality of overburdening, load carrying, being too much attached to material circumstances, trying too hard to get the Western dream of having a huge big pile of beans that we own when we die. This gives us a lack of understanding of what is the true nature of the soul. It continues that Dhenikasura causes complete and total ignorance of one's eternal identity and stimulates foolish misconceptions about the eternal nature of the holy name of the Lord, and misdirects about what is actually worshipable. So, all of us here, we have a wonderful opportunity by the grace of Srila Prabhupada to uncover the natural prem, which is a condition of our nature. In Sanskrit, this is called swabhava. Our intrinsic swabhava, our intrinsic nature is to be full of anand, sat, chit, ananda, to be full of ananda. And this ananda can be accessed, and simultaneously we can give to others by the chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, and profuse book distribution. So all of you here who have some spare time, please involve in the 24-hour kirtan. Please involve in the Nagar kirtans which go out of the campus to various parts of Vrindavan. Please see Deva Shakti. Please see the International Bookshop about participating in book distribution, and let us all continue our journey back to home, back to Godhead. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Hare Krishna.